uh, I have a bio. I guess I don't have it here. And he and his wife Nancy have been involved in being in Japan. And let's see, the first time we had interaction with Ike Graham was actually my wife and he. They were both working at Grace Manufacturing. And she would come home with these interesting stories about Ike Graham. And they were usually very complimentary, very complimentary. Usually. I can't remember any time they weren't complimentary. Okay. I say usually because my memory is so bad, I couldn't think of anything, but if I put my mind to it, I might be able to come up with something if it would make you feel better. But at any rate, I found Ike to have a forthright mind. He seems to be able to stay on task, and he is very good in the area of missions. And we are going to be having an offering this evening, and the way we're going to handle this, we're giving them mileage here and there, here and then back again, because we wouldn't want them to be able to get back home. And mileage here and then back home. And then we're taking 3 offerings, of which tonight is the second, and we will combine these 3 offerings, tomorrow being the third, loose money and anything designated toward the mission conference. We will add them together and divide it by 2, and then half will go to the Grahams to use however they are led of the Lord to use, and the other half will go to Keith and Nancy Merriman. As you know, Ike is married to Nancy, and Keith is married to Nancy, but they're not the same Nancy. So I just want you to know that. Okay. Sometimes we can get confused on these things, and we just don't want that confusion. But we'd like for the ushers to come forward at this time. So if they would, and you folks have been advised as to us having these offerings, and so we're not going to have a lot of ado about it. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege to participate in sending missionaries, in supporting those that do work of missions, for that makes us fellow partakers in the work. And thank you for the marvelous things that you are doing, and we pray will continue to do until you come. Bless this offering now, and we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, I believe I've kind of already introduced Brother Ike in what I said previously, and he is going to share with us tonight about Myanmar and perhaps give us an update on Papua New Guinea. So the Lord's blessing upon you, brother, as you share with us.
Well, it's so good for us to be here with you again. I was trying to remember last time, I think it was a couple years ago, that Pastor Russ invited us to come, and we're just happy to see you all again. It's always nice to have fellowship together. My understanding of the program is tonight I'll share with you about what was formerly called Burma, that country, and what we're doing there. And then tomorrow, you have worship first, right? And Pastor Russ asked me to preach, and he said a biblical message. I didn't know that you could do any other kind, but that's the kind he requested, so that's what we'll do. And then afterwards, I'll share with you about India. I wanted to share a little bit of history about our involvement in Myanmar, because I felt like Jonah in regard to this country. I think it was in 2011, I had been contacted by an elder of a local church in what used to be the capital city of Yangon, there in Myanmar. You can see that on the map. And he said, I'd like to possibly form a partnership to plant churches. And I said, okay, well, here's our statement of faith. You read the statement of faith, we can discuss that, and then maybe we go from there. And so we spent a number of months doing that. And then he said, I'm coming to America, so could I meet you? And I said, sure. Well, that was in November, I think, of 2011, about 6 years ago. And we met and we talked. Actually, Jim Marsh took him to our house from, he was in Indianapolis, and Jim Marsh gave him a ride over to our place, and we met at my house, and we talked. We looked online, used the maps, Google Maps, to see exactly where he lived, and talked about many things. And we decided, okay, we would make this trip. I said the next time that we're scheduled to go is 2013, May of 2013. So let's plan on that. Well, I think it was in January or February of that year, 2013, that in our conversations back and forth, there was just some strange things that he was saying. And to shorten the story, he finally said, well, you know what, let's just forget it. Let's just cancel the meeting. And I said, okay, what do I do with my plane tickets that I already bought? And he said, well, I don't know. But he said, I don't think this is going to go forward. And I said, okay. Well, somehow, in God's marvelous providence, I don't remember exactly how this happened, although every week or so I get these calls from Indianapolis that say, hello, this is Dr. Whitcomb. And I said, oh, Dr. Whitcomb, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. I met this guy from Myanmar here in Indianapolis, and I think you should call him and talk to him since you're going there. So I did. I called him. I talked to him. I told him what happened with this other guy. He said, well, why don't you come anyhow? You already have the airfare. And that particular year, Benjamin Miller and Joshua Steiner went with me. And I said, okay. The purpose of going at that time was Craig and Sarah Noyes, you may remember, they were looking at different places to go. Where would God have us to go? We want to reach unreached tribal people. And I said, well, there are tribal people in what used to be called Burma. And Craig was actually going to go with us. He was supposed to be the fourth member of the team, but something happened, that all of you probably can identify with, and that is that their first baby was due, Shia was due, and Craig said to me, you think I should go? And I said, let me think about it. No. So we went without Craig, and we met this friend of Dr. Whitcomb's. He's a graduate of Bob Jones University, has a PhD, and his son-in-law also. They run like a Bible school or seminary in the former capital of Yangon. And so while we were there, they were showing us around, and I said, well, but the reason that we came is we came to find out what are the possibilities of planting churches. I don't wonder what I did to this thing. I just touched it and it buzzed. Nothing? Okay. What are the possibilities of planting churches among tribal people, particularly up here in this area where a lot of them are? They said, we have no idea. I said, could you arrange for us to get up there and visit some of these tribal peoples and see, because that's why we're here. We're here on an investigative trip to find out what are the possibilities of planting churches among these different tribes. They said, yes, we know a fellow up there. His name is Jimmy, and he'll show you around. He'll take you wherever you want to go. And we said, okay. So we took the all-night bus. We took the all-night bus. You'll see a little bit more about that later. And went up there into the mountain area. The bus driver was supposed to tell us which stop to get off on, and he didn't. We were told later he was the new driver. He forgot. And Jimmy had to come and get us. And so by the time we got to where he was, it was about 10:30 or so in the morning. He said it's a 3-hour hike up into the mountains to see these tribes. And I said, well, then we better get going right now. And in 2013, I was only 60 that year. So 3-hour hike up the mountains and up the mountains. Yeah. Anyhow, so we met some different tribal groups, gathered this information, went on to India, had our conferences there, and came back. When I got back, the Foreign Mission Panel said, well, what do you think about Myanmar? And I said, I don't think it's going to work. The Noys are thinking about Papua New Guinea. They don't seem to be very interested in this. We didn't really have a lot of help there in terms of, how is this going to work? So I think we should just forget it. And they said, okay. I said, we're busy enough as it is with India. So in the meantime, the fellows there in Yangon who had shown us around, they asked us what we had learned, and we shared with them, and they said, wow, we didn't even realize that there are that many tribal groups unreached without the gospel in our own country. And I said, well, it seems rather funny to me that we have to come halfway around the world to tell you should reach your own people, but here we are. But they did take that to heart, and they said, it's a challenge. We appreciate that. So like I said, we went back, we told the Foreign Mission Panel, not going to work. In the meantime, this young man named Nine Vu had gone to the United States. That would have been in 2014, I think, to study at a seminary in Grand Rapids. And he was there studying for a year, and his background is Plymouth Brethren, and so he was looking for a Brethren church. And the only one he found in the phone book was the Alto, Michigan, Grace Brethren Church. And so he called Pastor Brian Maley. He said, hey, I'm from Myanmar. I'm looking for a Brethren church. Is there a way I can get a ride? Oh, sure. And so he began attending the Alto Church. Well, he was very curious about tri-immersion, threefold communion. He watched the baptisms. He participated in threefold communion. Finally, he said to Pastor Maley, I think we should be doing this, our fellowship of churches in Myanmar. So in 2015, he met with, he didn't meet with, we went to the Foreign Mission Panel, Pastor Maley did, and said, I think we ought to go there and see what's going on, and Nine Bu wants us to come. And I was sitting in that meeting, and Pastor Russ was a member of the panel at that time. You'll see more about this in my little video, but Pastor Russ was just exuberant and more than willing, he said, to shed every ounce of my blood so that this could happen. And it almost happened. So Pastor Maley and I went to Myanmar. We went to Yangon. This is where we flew into. This group, this fellowship of churches, the Southern Chin Brethren churches, have a Bible college there. We taught there, and then we went up into the mountains of the Chin state where most of their churches are. I mean, we went up into the mountains, and we met with them, and I taught the statement of faith during their conference. They have a conference every January, and we went through the entire statement of faith. And we said before we left, if you really want to join us, you're going to have to study this, decide if this is really what you believe, and if it is, we'll come back. And if not, fine. And so that was in 2016, yes. And so I think it was in May of 2016, they said, we've spent 3 months studying this. It is biblical. We can't find any reason why we shouldn't do this, so we're going to join with you. So please come and teach us more. And I said, all right, Pastor Maley, you can go back. And were you on the panel then? Yeah. And I'm sure Pastor Russ was more than willing to send me back. And they did. Well, that was that's kind of the history of what happened. I mean, I drug my feet throughout this whole thing, and I thought, I don't need something else to do. I can't believe that, Lord, are you sure this is what you want? And I had a better attitude this year when I went, because I asked the Lord to help me with my attitude. I said, Lord, if this is what you want, you make it clear to me, and I'll be all in. I'll be all for it. And so we left. In January, we went back. You can see this picture here, this map. You can see how close to this part of India that it is, as well as Thailand. I know a New Tribes missionary in this area, and we've been talking about this whole area here. And then, of course, bordering on China up here. The farther you get north, it's amazing to me how many of the people really look Chinese. So what we've done is we've decided, because of their response, to partner with the Southern Chin Brethren churches, 14 local churches in this small fellowship, largely in the Chin state, to plant churches in areas or in tribes where there are no churches, where there's no gospel. So let me kind of bring you up to speed then. When we went in January, we flew into the port city of Yangon. I think, if I remember right, Nainbu told me it's about 5 million people in that city. And we taught at the Dai Bible College. This is the training center that they've created for the young people in their fellowship of churches, and they've opened this up to anybody who wants to come to this Bible college. And so when we were there and we taught, there were also Presbyterians and Methodists and some others who attend this training center there in Yangon. This next picture is one of the classes that they had there. And this last time I taught there, I think 2 days, a total of about 6 hours. During that time, the subjects they asked me to teach were: how do I know what the will of God is for me? How do I prepare for ministry? Things like that. This next video, and I hope this works, is a video of teaching there at Dai College.
You wrote contributions.
Yeah, he wrote the letters. What letters did he write?
Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians. Arabic, no? Huh? Philemon, yeah.
Yeah, Paul didn't sit in his cell and say, "Oh, I can't believe that this was not my plan." He didn't do that. Now, that's kind of funny, but you know what? You have plans. And let's pretend that you get in a taxi or you're on a bus and you're driving somewhere, going somewhere. And another bus or a car comes along and hits your vehicle. And your neck is broken. You can't move your arms or your legs. And now you just sit in the chair because you can't move. What are you going to do? Now your plans have changed. Do you remember Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 9?
Verse
9. The Apostle Paul knew this verse. Okay, so that was a little bit of teaching. Here's the class. There are about 20 students. You might have been asking yourself, what are those girls doing there? They have an interesting system. They not only train men for the ministry, but for the ladies who run their Sunday school classes, who do like child evangelism, things like that. They train them with the same Bible curriculum. Now those students, I have to hand it to them here in Yangon at this college. This is their food preparation area and also where they wash their clothes. Here's some of the clothes hanging up. And then on the other side of the building is where they cook their meals, outside like that. Now when we were there in January, while I was teaching at the college, his son, Braden, went over to another area with 9 Bu, took the boat, went down the river to this area where they have an outreach, and they had an outreach there that day. These are some of the people that attended from that village. And at the end of the time that they were there were 7 people who said they wanted to put their faith and trust in the Lord Jesus. So that was a profitable day, that day they were there. Then when we were finished, we got on one of the buses to go up into the mountains for the conference. He had asked me to teach homiletics to the pastors, and also we were going to review the statement of faith and see if they were going to commit to that. And so we got on the bus to go, and this next clip is for Pastor Russ. If it works. Now, God may have spared him from this, I don't know. Oh, there it was. I got to go back. It did come up. Rob, if I'm doing something wrong, just tell me. Sometimes it's just slow. Sometimes it just takes a little bit to come up. I saw that it started to, and unfortunately I'd clicked it at that same time. You know I did sabotage. Dr. Simpson, we just want you to know that you are sacrificing every ounce of my blood. It is 10:42 and we're somewhere in Myanmar. And you'll notice the coat that I have on, because in 2016 when we were there, no one told me that in the month of January, when you go up into the mountains, it'll be 30 degrees at night and there's no central heating. So this year I was ready. I had my coat and a blanket and a hat, and I practically slept in them as well. So we went up into the mountains of the Chin State to meet with the brethren there who have their conference in the town of Mindot, and we just kept going up. I think it was an 8-hour trip up the road. You never know what you're going to meet along the way. This is typical transportation there, particularly outside the city. And if you happen to run out of gas, then, no, that's actually a joke. We had to stop and use the restroom, and I told Braden, I said, take the camera and turn it like this so it looks like we're pushing it up the hill. But you can clearly see the restrooms. They're right there behind us. And then we came into the town of Mindot, up there in the mountains, and we attended the conference. You can kind of see the English. They had English up here. The Southern Brethren, I think it says Assemblies Fellowship Annual Meeting and Pastoral Workshop from January 17th to 25th. So we were there during that time. And this is one of the video clips of homiletics class that 9 Bu had asked me to teach.
So Epaphras, his passion comes out of love. it's like a burden. He's always laboring.
ဒုတိယကသူတကယ်ဝန်တာစိတ်နဲ့ကြိုးစားပြီးအလုပ်လုပ်ခဲ့
And his prayers are bringing the power of God to hold the believers up.
နောက်ပြီးတော့မှသာတရားကသူရဲ့ဆုတောင်းခြင်းရဲ့တကူကယုံကြည်သူရဲ့အသက်တာကိုပြောင်းလဲစေတယ်
So we took Colossians 4:12, we diagrammed the verses,
Verse 13 then,
created an outline
praise.
because his burden was to help them to learn how to preach expository messages and not just some idea that they had.
And it's obsessive, it's consuming.
အဲ့ဒါပြီးလို့ရှိရင်တသက်သူ့ရဲ့အသက်တာတစ်ခုလုံးကိုထုံးမိုးထားတဲ့အရာဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုတော့လည်းကျွန်တော်တွေ့ရတယ်
Okay, are you ready to preach it then?
အဲ့လိုဆိုရင်ဒီအကြောင်းကိုတရားဟော
I had them do some homework. I gave them homework. They prepared, worked on the message themselves, and ended up sharing with the other men during that time. Now, while we were there, we had also asked them about trine immersion. One of the more scholarly of the group said that he had spent a year studying this. He was firmly convinced it's exactly what the Bible teaches. And he said, I'll be one of the first ones who get baptized. And so there were 22 of those men that day who went with us down to the river for baptism. Now, I said to Pastor Maley, after feeling the water, you can baptize them. It was freezing cold. I mean, freezing cold. I think this is just a picture of, you'll notice what 9 is doing. He's standing on a rock because he wanted to have as little as possible of his body in that water. And Pastor Maley kept saying, you'll see this on the next slide, it's a video clip. It's, oh, it's warm, guys, it's hot, you just come right in. I think it's just maybe the slowness of the system, how it worked, because it did the same thing on my computer. It just took a while to come up. If you can put your cursor on the clip and right-click it, I think it'll say play, and then you can hit that if it's not going to play. There we go.
It's hot. It's hot.
Can you hear him say it's hot? That water was coming down out of the mountains and it was freezing cold.
Baptize you in the name of the Father and in the name of the Son.
And I told Pastor Brian I had never seen anyone baptized that fast before. Now, we spent time explaining things again before we went down here, so it's not like they didn't have an explanation. I picked this particular clip here because of this guy. Watch what happens after he gets baptized and they pray for him.
Baptize you in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
He was very happy about that.
My toes are numb.
Oh, what happened here? Okay. Okay, so this is a picture of the people who were baptized that day. The fellow I said, I've studied this for years down here. His name is Bumonaling. And you can see Brother Nine Boo and Pastor Brian and his son Braden there. There were also 3 of the women who said, we want to do this too. That kind of surprised me, especially because of how cold the water was. We went back up to where we were meeting, and we instructed them about communion, threefold communion. Fine, let's do it now. And so we did.
Okay, this song. Saya đi quay.
Probably that tune sounded familiar. Now, there was a little bit of humor in this because they said to me probably 4 hours before this, what do we need for the communion? I said, well, we probably need maybe 6 basins, 4 for the guys, 2 for the ladies, and twice as many buckets, because we'll put the clean water in one bucket, and then after you wash feet, we'll pour that into the empty bucket, and we'll put more clean water into the basin. Okay. Well, when they came, they only had as many buckets as basins. And I said, well, where are we going to put the dirty water? And they said, well, we'll just, when we're all done, we'll throw it out. I said, you mean you're just going to pass the dirty water? And they said, sure. Well, Pastor Maley, you can ask him about this next time you see him. Guess who had their feet washed last? It was him. Kept telling me about that. So anyhow, we had a great time. It's unbelievable to me how many people you can get into one of those little rooms. The room was probably half the size of this room, and we had over 100 people in it. And when we didn't have room, they took the chairs out and everybody just sat on the floor. So then we had to make our way back down the mountain. And when Pastor Maley found out that Braden had forgot his passport, there was panic, but the Lord worked all that out. One of the things that we did was we talked together about how we're going to go about planning churches together. And we said one of the first things we need, a couple things we need, is who is the team going to be? who exactly is going to do this and where. And so these two young men who are graduates of the Bible College came forward. They said they would like to form the team to go into a town where there's no gospel, no churches, and plant a church there. And we've had extensive discussions with Nine Boo to make sure he oversees all of this. And the place that they chose, I must have put the wrong, that's too bad, I have the wrong. Anyhow, those aren't supposed to be separate, they're supposed to be together. They chose a place called Kyeoksu in Seoul Township in the province of Magway. You can see the Magway here. They chose this area because when we were discussing where we would begin, and I'm going to show you this on the next map. In fact, maybe I'll do that and then come back to this one. You can see the country in terms of the different states. There are 135 tribal groups in Myanmar. Their fellowship of churches are in these areas, particularly in the Chin state. There's a group of them there. There's a group farther up into the mountains. I was told the government won't allow us to go up. They won't allow foreigners to go up into that area. They also have some churches there where it says C near Yangon, the old capital, and also in this area of the Cayenne province, and also in Kaya and not too far from Mandalay. But the areas where there are no churches and no gospel are these areas here that are popping up now. Did you see that one? This area, across the country there, that middle one of the reasons for that is because it's a very powerful stronghold of Buddhism. The Buddhism of Burma or Myanmar is different than the Buddhism of some other countries like Japan. It's much more militant, much more aggressive. And in this area here and down here. And so they wanted to pick an area right in here where it wouldn't be that far from these churches. So they would be able to assist them. And the idea, the strategy is, well, let's start here. This will be our beachhead and make our way into these areas as we go across and then over into here. And if we have other teams later, we can go up here or down here. So that's the idea in terms of planting churches there. And I probably should stop since I'm out of slides and see if you have questions. Everybody still awake?
What was the town again that they're going to be in?
That town is Kyeoksu or Kyeoksu.
Do they have any Sikh families there?
No. That was one of the reasons why we had talked about, when I was there, we had talked about going to this. There are a lot of tribal people in this area up here. This is the area that we hiked up into in 2013 in the Shan State. But they said, well, that's too far away. I mean, we don't have any churches in that area, so if there are needs or to get things to them, it'd be much better to start here and work our way that way. And I said, okay, that's fine with me. But that was one of the reasons why. I mean, there's no support other than the churches in the area.
I don't know if you covered this or not, but
The men that are going, are they already trained or are they training for this? What's the time frame?
They are graduates of the Bible College. In fact, the one, Hui Mana here, pushed the wrong button. When I was there in 2016, he was I think that was his last year. He was finishing. And this young man, I didn't really know him, Nine Ling, because he had finished earlier and they had been working with the churches. Typically what they do is they have what we would call an internship. They're going to graduate from the college, they're going to go and work in a local church, and then they're either going to go start a church or they're going to help in maybe the church they're from. That's how their program works.
We heard how our support to Cameroon pays for church planters. Is that something that's going to happen here with these two
That's
young
all,
men?
you know, and everybody anybody anywhere that we've talked to, that's all that we do is plant churches. The reason that we have the orphan and foster care ministry in India is because the Foreign Mission Panel decided as a whole that they thought that was essential to the church planting effort in India, and so that's why that was endorsed. But and over the years, I was not in favor of that in the beginning, but over the years, it has proven fruitful for two reasons. When I was at Torbay House a couple years ago, Paul said, "I want you to meet these children. Their parents are Muslims." I said, "Well, why are they here then?" Well, we give the kids a good education and they live nearby and they want their children to come here. And the dad came to our Christmas program and heard the gospel and said, "We need to talk more about this." Plus, some of the kids that they grow up, 3 of them, what year was that? What year is this? Yeah, I think it was 2015. We baptized 3 of them. They were getting ready to leave. They were 18, 19 now, and they were going to go get jobs or they were going to go to college, but they wanted to get baptized. And I thought, wow, the Lord sure proved me wrong about this. You know, here children have come to faith and have grown up and they want to be baptized. So that was a highlight of that year.
In the area that you're talking about, that Buddhism is so prominent, what are the repercussions of sharing the gospel and the work of evangelism in that area?
They might kill you. Yeah. I mean, that's how militant they are. The Buddhists in Myanmar, they have constant conflict. I shouldn't say constant. They have conflict with the military more often than not. I mean, armed conflict, not just, yelling at each other. So it's a different kind of Buddhism than I had seen before. In addition, I mean, the country is really closed to missionaries officially, legally. Now, supposedly that's changing. They have undergone a political restructuring. It used to be run by the military. You might remember that President Obama was there in 2013 and appealed to them to release this woman who was, she was in favor of making the country a democratic country. And they did release her then in 2016, I think. And I think she's the Minister of Foreign Affairs or something now, but it's a job they've given to her to keep her out of their hair. I mean, in terms of who runs the country. She doesn't really run the country. So it's been a very slow process, but it is changing. And so we'll see what happens in the future.
The fellow that you were speaking of that was 18 or reaching that age, that they're leaving the orphanage and
Oh, well, that was in India.
Okay.
Okay, that wasn't here. So.
Okay. But even in that, when they go out like that, what are the percentages? Has it happened enough that you're able to have a percentage number that this happens, that the kids in the Torbay house get saved, grow up, leave the area, and
I see what you're saying.
Stay with Christianity?
Well, if you would bring that question up tomorrow when we talk about India, I think that would be good to go over that again. But that's a good point. The point is we haven't had a long history. I'm amazed. This is our 10th year. We started in 2007, 10th year of partnering with them. And so over the last 10 years, if you're looking for a percentage, maybe 3%. Of those children have come to faith and have been baptized, but I didn't expect that any would, so praise the Lord for the 3%.
I'll have a couple questions. Right now, or recently, there was a mass exodus of quite a few Muslims from Myanmar. And the reports that I got were that they were pushed out by Buddhists who were burning their homes and things like that. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I remember hearing about that. A lot of times when I hear things in the news or somebody sends me an article, I'll send it to Nine Boo and I'll say, can you confirm this? And sometimes he'll say, no, I'm not sure I can confirm that. I haven't heard that. Now, maybe it's because he doesn't have well, I shouldn't say that. He probably does have as good of access to news as I do, but I'm always a little leery when I hear things and he can't confirm it. It's nice to have somebody in the country that can either say, yes, that happened or not. I'm assuming it did. To what degree, I don't know. To what degree has the news made a big story out of it? I don't know.
Well, I believe I heard this on Christian radio. They're a little more careful about some of these things. But the second question.
Well, that would not surprise me, though,
yeah.
Because like the Hindu activists in India, the Buddhists of Myanmar do not like their territory infringed on.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another reason why I'm not opposed to this strategy of starting churches in areas that are kind of outside these strongholds to slowly move in,
mm-hmm.
and not just go right in somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. Now there was some statements, I believe, when you shared in previous times here, and also by Brother Maley, that some of these areas had not seen a white man for 50 years, and that we're in on the cusp of this thing early. What can you comment about that?
Yeah, that's probably true. In 2013, when we hiked up into the mountains, this tribal leader that we met, I don't think he'd ever met a white man. And in the area up in the mountains of Chin State, up here, their conference in 2018 is going to be up in this area. And Nine Boo said, because I said, I'm not planning to come next year. And he said, well, you can't, because the government won't allow you to go up into that area. And so there are areas like that where they've never, even in Mindot, where we were at here in Chin State, maybe Pastor Maley told you about this, but when we were walking down the street, there are children going like this, walking and watching us and running into poles, because they had never seen, especially somebody that big.
Do you have any conjecture as to why they won't let you back up into that area?
Well, I asked that. I said, how come, why does the government not want us to go up there? And they said, well, they're embarrassed. It's a very primitive area. I said, well, do you think MnDOT is technologically advanced? He said, well, no, but that's even worse. And he said, and besides that, there really, there's no electricity, there are no facilities. And I said, well, I've camped before. He said, yeah, but the government just says, no, they won't let you do it. He said, we could probably sneak you in, but probably not a good idea.
Progress in planning a new church?
With those guys?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to see if I can find, well, I should have checked to make sure. I had a picture, I thought I had it on this presentation, of the house that the two guys have rented. So they have a house rented, the target area has been selected, the house has been rented, they're ready to go and move into the area, but it's just starting. They're just moving in.
The women in the class that we saw, are any of them married to the men in the class?
No, those are all single people. But they don't all live there. The guys live there. There's a dorm upstairs, and the women live about a mile away in another dorm that they have. Now they're there for classes. They interact when they cook their food and wash their clothes and things like that, but they live in different locations. In fact, the one guy, I can't remember how he's related to Nine Boo, but he has a definite British accent. He got his education in the UK, and he has a place about a mile away where the ladies live. And so they walk that mile to come to school each day.
How's the support coming in?
Well, initially it was good. Nine Boo and I should share this with you too. Nine Boo and one of the pastors, whose name is Kai Chi, if you get the updates, I think I had them in one of the updates. They were here in the U.S. I think they came in either at the end of July or beginning of August until about the middle of September. And I asked them why they came. And they said there are a lot of Burmese people living in the United States. Dr. Whitcomb had sent me a newspaper article, an Indianapolis newspaper that had a 2 or 3 page article on all the people from Burma, Myanmar, who have immigrated and are living in Indianapolis. I think about 2,500 of them. Well, a number of them are Christians, and they've started churches here in the U.S. using Burmese as their language, or in the case of like the Chin State, they speak the Dai language, and so they use both. That's why it's called Dai Bible College. They use the Dai language, and they use Burmese. And so those churches here in the U.S., not only in Indiana, but in some of the other states where they're at, they asked them to come and teach because apparently, this is the way they explained it to me, there is a heresy going through their churches saying that Jesus is not God. It's an Arian-like heresy. And so they asked them to come, and so they divided up and tried to reach all these churches. So anyhow, while they were here, we met in Michigan. Pastor Maley drove partway, we drove partway, and we went over our written plan and what we were going to do, and said, here is the initial money to get started, the initial 3 months. So that money came in very well, but then we were short for this last quarter, and it was made up through that program that Pastor Steve had started, M120 or something like that. So, I mean, it's happening, but slowly, and we're just getting off the ground. Now, the good thing is that our budget for the team there in Myanmar is $600 a month. That adequately covers them in terms of housing and food and what they need for both of them.
Did you have an opportunity or did you remind Nine Boo that if this group had practiced triune immersion, they wouldn't be having perhaps the idea of Jesus not being God?
I'll mention that. You know what? I think it would be good to mention that in terms of them sharing with the churches here in the U.S. what's going on with them. Yeah. Questioned out? Excellent. So I was also asked to give an update regarding Papua New Guinea, since I'm on the foreign mission panel again. I'm not sure where to begin. I don't know. The whole controversy, the whole problem has been going on for over 7 months now.
Well, they've been fairly well updated.
Okay.
You can just share the bottom line.
Okay.
A few reasons.
Mm-hmm. Well, you probably know that the Swensons had made their choice to stay with New Tribes, and the Noys had decided they were going to maintain their convictions about triune immersion and threefold communion, and so they've kind of gone their own ways. In fact, Paul even requested his membership to be removed from the Irisburg, Vermont church. In the meantime, Brother Craig had had decided that he could probably stay in Papua New Guinea for another 12 to 18 months doing support work for new tribes until Josh Miller from the Orville Church and Autumn Arp, and you're aware that they're getting married March 20th.
No, they're getting married. Okay, I know they recorded.
Oh, no, they're getting married. March 24th. March. Mhm. That's the plan. Their plan is to get married on March 24th. But when we look at the amount of time it's going to take them, they're finishing training with new tribes. They'll be done, officially they'll be done in December. Then they're going to take a technology course in January. Then they're planning to get married. And for some reason, I'm still trying to figure this out. Josh doesn't think he can take the theological exam at conference. He just won't have enough time to prepare. What do you think, Pastor Russ?
It's a personal decision.
So anyhow, from the time it takes him to pass the exam, to be ordained, to be endorsed, to start raising support, it's going to take time. Maybe 2, maybe 3 years. So Craig is thinking, I could stay there. I can continue to learn talk Pidgin and build relationships in terms of what we need for logistics, and then go back to the U.S. and join up with what will be the Millers, and then we would come back. Well, we've had quite a bit of discussion about that, whether they should stay, whether they should come back now. And New Tribes definitively answered that question. They told Craig that they think it would be good if he left. It's unhealthy is the word they used, unhealthy if he stays. My interpretation of unhealthy is that New Tribes missionaries are going to Craig and are saying, oh, I guess there's a problem. A problem over the ordinances? Yes. Well, what's the problem? Well, we baptize by tri-immersion. What's that? Well, come on in, have a seat. I'll tell you about it. It's unhealthy. That's my interpretation. So anyhow, they want him to leave before Thanksgiving. But in the meantime, back on August 29th, the Foreign Mission Panel had a meeting with Joey Tartaglias, who's with another group in Papua New Guinea called Finisterre Vision. I don't have a map of PNG to put up here, but there is a peninsula. If you look at a map of PNG, you'll see this peninsula just a little north and west of the city of Madang, when you look at the map. And there are 55 tribes in that area, that mountain area, that Finisterre means ends of the earth, that are at the ends of the earth. Some of them are saying, please send missionaries to us. We want to hear this God talk. So we met with Joey and we said, now, Craig would still like to stay there and plant churches, but how can we work this out? Here are the problems that we've had with New Tribes. Why did you leave New Tribes? And his comment to us was, I left New Tribes because even though they say they're here to assist the local church, they're basically, oh, excellent, thank you. I thought about asking you about this, and I thought, nah, I don't want to put Rob on the spot. So let's see. Yeah, I'm looking for Madang, right there. Oops. Did it die? Or did I kill it? Oh, I think I did, because the battery thing is flashing. Oh, okay. So where Madang is there, I don't think it's the area, the lower area that's sticking out. It could be. I was thinking it was up higher. Yeah, in that area where it kind of sticks out, where that mountain range is. Anyhow, oh, thank you. What was I saying? Yeah. Well, Pastor Don Farner tells me it only gets worse.
There is a possibility of being secluded.
Oh, yes. Okay. So when New Tribes asked Craig to leave, Craig said, well, what about the other option that you were talking about being seconded to Finisterre Vision, loaned to them? Technically, thank you. Technically, he would still be a New Tribes missionary, but practically he would be, what did I do? It buzzed and then maybe I turned it off. It is on?
I can see the green thing.
You can? I can't. I'll let you figure it out. And they said, yes, that's a possibility. You could be seconded to them. So Craig has been discussing with a fellow named Jeremy, who's with Finisterre there in Madang. I'm trying to think of where Sebago would be. Anyhow, there's another place called Sebago. Might not even be on the map there. That's where they're at right now. And they would move to Madang and help Finisterre Vision. In the meantime, Pastor Scott Libby and I are planning to attend Finisterre's meeting on November 17th to ask them questions, because when we asked Joey why he left New Tribes, he said, well, they say that they're here to assist the local church, but what I learned is that they're basically in charge. They call all the shots with everything. I raised some questions. They were not very comfortable with that. Thank you. And so we decided to strike out on our own. Here's Madang, and I'm not sure where Sebago is. And we would form our own mission group, only this time it would be directly under the leadership, the direction of the local churches. And we said, well, that sounds really good. So we ask a lot of questions. We're planning to attend the meeting. So in the meantime, the question now is probably the hot question is, how long should the noise stay there before they come back? They've been offered this opportunity by Finisterre, which could be anywhere from 9 to 11 months. The Foreign Mission Panel thinks that maybe they should come back sooner, maybe like in February. So that way we could all sit down together, the Millers, the Noyes, and discuss how we're going to reform and resend them. That's a big prayer request. Pray about that, how that's all going to work out. That's what I know.
Any questions on that? Are they presently endorsed under the former plan?
The Noyes?
Yeah.
Well, Pastor, we just had a meeting on Thursday. Pastor Scott Libby he's on the executive panel. He came to Mansfield, Ohio. The Foreign Mission Panel met with him on Thursday, and he brought a written plan. The problem is, as we went over the written plan, it lacks some things, and so it was not endorsed. We said, you need to go back to the drawing board and spell out or work out some of these details here. So it's being worked on, but there isn't one that's endorsed yet.
Are you saying that they're de-endorsed?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying we're all in limbo at this point.
So just continue giving.
Oh yeah, I mean, this whole thing, we were blindsided. I mean, if you know everything that's happened, I was the one who went with Pastor Libby and Craig in March of 2011. Well, let me back up. In the fall of 2010, Pastor Libby and Craig and I visited pioneers in Florida to talk to them about possibly having them assist us to plant churches in PNG or wherever it would be at that time. And we all agreed it probably wouldn't work because of their structure. They recommended New Tribes. So in March of 2011, we met with Greg Sanford at Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania, and discussed with him how this might happen. And we said to him, is there any problem with us practicing trine immersion or threefold communion? No, he said, if you have a team, there are no issues. You have your own team. So when we had the conference call with the field leadership team of PNG, New Tribes PNG, back at the end of April, Greg Sanford was part of that call. And his comment was, you probably feel betrayed. I said, that is exactly how I feel. Exactly. And of course, the rest is history. Now, interestingly enough, I don't know if you know this or not, but New Tribes is such a large organization that the USA portion of New Tribes doesn't tell their fields what to do. The fields decide on their own. The USA portion of New Tribes is still in agreement with us that they don't see it as a problem. So within their own organization, they don't agree with each other. It's the field leadership team in PNG that is resisting this.
Would you speak to the issue that how we're doing with Myanmar, and we aren't using New Tribes, and how that's going to go, or how we're not using New Tribes in Africa, and how that's going, and do we really need New Tribes? You see.
Well, from my perspective, we have two different situations. We have situations in Myanmar, India, and Africa where we have nationals on the spot who are working with us and caring for all of these logistics and other legal issues that we don't have to take care of. In PNG, we don't have that. There are no nationals. And so to some degree, I mean, Craig and I have talked about this. I've said to Craig, we can do this. It's going to be harder and it's going to take longer, but we can do it. But we still are going to need New Tribes or SIL helicopters. We're still going to need somebody's legal umbrella for visas and for money transfer and for things like that. So it is possible, but it would be much harder and it would take longer. Now, I think that with Craig staying there and gaining more experience, it would become easier because now you have somebody who knows how the system works. And for us, as I don't think it would be any problem for Millers to get in because Craig would be there and know all the ropes. That would be my perspective on it.
Now, New Tribes has even talked to us about maybe working with us to come into Myanmar. Are we so aligned anymore?
Well, that's an interesting story too. Can the Myanmar map? May I have? You can see that here is Thailand, and the border is clear over here. I mentioned that I've been friends with the New Tribe. I watched this young man grow up in Japan, and he became a New Tribes missionary. He's serving in Thailand in this area with the Karen Po people. Well, those people, that particular tribe, they don't care anything about borders. And so they're in this whole area here. And so New Tribes has wondered about how to get into here. And they wanted to talk to us about what we knew about that area that might help them. But after this whole thing came up, there's been no communication. I can understand that. You're a very patient group.
My question, just when you talked about the written plan that wasn't complete enough, was that something, I think that's what I understood.
Regarding the noise?
Yes. Was that something that Craig himself had written up, or was that something that the Libby's church, or how did that work, or was it kind of coordinated?
That's a good question. The Foreign Mission Panel asked the same question. We asked Pastor Libby, we said, who put this written plan together? All of the elders at Irisburg or Craig? And he said, well, Craig basically crafted it, and we went over it together and agreed with him. So we said, okay, well, there are some things that need to be changed.
When you train the men in Myanmar, are you using the same Practorium material that we're using in Cameroon and here in America?
No, they have, at Dye College, they have their own curriculum. It's a bit more stringent, actually, than what we use in Practorium in terms of this is the time you have to get up. It's almost like military. This time you have to get up, you have this much time to get your devotions done, then there's breakfast. And so like when I was there teaching, I was told, okay, your first class is going to be from 9 to 11. Then your next class will be from approximately 11 to 1. Then they're going to have lunch. Then the next class will be from 2 or 2:30, something like that, to 4:30. And so that's, and then they're done and they have homework and have to do laundry and all that stuff too. But they, when we were there, right on the wall, and I don't have it on this particular PowerPoint, but I do have pictures of that we took. On the wall, it says, okay, you have to complete this course, then this course. And so there's a whole list of courses. They have to complete Bible courses. But when I looked at it, it looked very thorough. I mean, it looked good to me. It would be similar to what we do. And of course, the advantage they have is they have Nine Bu and I wish I could remember the other guy's name, other professors who are teaching them. And I talked to them. I asked them about the curriculum, what they teach, what they go over, and it all sounds very good. Sounds like it's fairly thorough. We're making sure that Brother Dave gets a workout.
When you're teaching classes, I noticed that you would say something that would be interpreted.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't that make teaching more difficult and longer for whatever subject matter you're teaching?
Sure. Yeah, it does. Now, the thing that I've noticed, though, after using an interpreter in many places, is that Nine Bu is very good. I mean, he's just like that. I mean, there are some times in India, for example, particularly up in Odisha, where I'll say something and one of the guys will look at me and say, what? And if you've ever seen that little video clip called Lost in Translation, you can probably have an idea of what that's like. But yeah, it does. But if the interpreter's good, it's not bad. It goes very smoothly. Well, Lord willing, unless the Lord comes, we'll see you in the morning.
Well, you folks have been very patient, and we've got ourselves a lot of good information. And tomorrow at 9:30, we will have our regular service. And since we're eating after the meal directly, we'll probably not really have much of a break in between worship service and Sunday school, except maybe to go to the restroom, get a drink of water, attend to those things. And that way that we can be more efficient with our time. And tomorrow it's a crock pot meal. And of course, you can bring other things besides that. But that'll primarily be the bill of fare. And